Hey, Next Levelers, Bob Gibbons here. Thank you for joining us for the Next Level show. And before we get going today, I need to pay tribute to somebody. Jim Bothy was my father-in-law, and he died 2 days ago from the time I'm recording this. And, you know, this show is all about entrepreneurism and people doing great things in business and building things. And Jim was an unlikely entrepreneur, but he started a general insurance service in the late 1950s in downtown Dallas and built it. And, you know, they were never huge, giant, but it provided a great living for a family and for a lot of other folks that worked with him. And eventually that turned into a business that he sold to his son, Richard, who's running it now. And, you know, when they started off, his wife, Mary, was making calls at night while the baby was in the playpen and just trying to get business any way they could. He drove 50 miles each way to go to the office so that his family could live out in a rural area that he wanted to. He founded a bank, was on a board of a hospital. He did a lot of things, and his personality really wasn't going out and making sales. It scared him to death to do that. And so I had a lot of respect for Jim, and we're going to miss him terribly. But our thoughts and prayers go to the family, and thank you, Jim, for being a great example. So today I'm excited because we have Rachael Sipperley with us, and Rachael is the founder of Rent My Wardrobe. And we're going to get into a whole lot of stuff about Rent My Wardrobe, but it is a cool company based in Dallas, Texas, and it's really focused on women-owned, empowering women, and it's, of course, women-owned, but empowering women, and it's a technology company owned by a woman, which you don't hear about a lot, so that's really cool by itself. So, Rachael, thank you for being with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. So, so you're pretty young, and you own a technology company.
Yes.
Is this what you planned to do when you
Never.
were a kid?
Not for a million years, no.
Because you're not a technology person, or because you just never thought you'd own your own company?
Well, I would say I was a born entrepreneur. My grandfather told me if there was a gene for making money, I had it. So I knew from a really young age that I wanted to do something really big that gave back and made an impact. I assumed that it would be something entrepreneurial, but never dreamed that it would be a technology fashion company. So here we are.
Nice. Well, so you said you had it in your genes, so I assume that means that you had other companies or businesses that you started at an even younger age.
Yeah, I was sort of always doing these side hustles, almost out of diapers. Before that phrase was really even coined, but constantly, you know, finding ways to make money. I did lemonade stands, I babysat, I always had little part-time jobs, and then into college was, you know, finding unique hacks, I guess you could say. I sold tickets and textbooks and did all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I think I didn't even realize that it was entrepreneurial at the time, but starting businesses way back then.
Well, I mean, that's kind of cool, though, that you just see a need for some money, and you see a need that you fill, and you know, is that called entrepreneurism, or is that just called, hey, I'm just helping somebody out and making a little money along the way? But you know, in some of the pre-interview information that you sent us, you actually started this babysitting company, but it wasn't just you babysitting, right?
Yeah, that's right. I had people. I started cleaning houses and babysitting, and then recruiting other girls in the neighborhood and friends from church to help me. And I think at one point there was 6 of us, you know, just running a little neighborhood.
Oh my goodness.
For the summers. Yeah, we would do swim lessons and all sorts of stuff with the kids.
So anything that a parent might need for their kid, you were supplying in one way or the other.
Yeah, it's so funny to think back on that now.
So what happened to all that? Did you try to sell it, or did it just sort of fizzle as you grow older?
Yeah, I mean, I think kids grow up and turn into, you know, school age, and then passed on to other neighborhood kids, I'm sure.
So what did you do when you have a unique story about college as well. I saw a video.
Yeah, did you see that?
Tell us about that. What was the thing about college that's so unusual?
So I actually started my undergrad when I was 15. Pretty, you know, out of the box way. I had taken an acting class, and I was super interested in theater. And I was considering doing school of choice and going to a different high school because they had a better theater program. And a guidance counselor said to me, why don't you, go and audition at the local university? there's this program called dual enrollment. It's traditionally for students that exhaust the curriculum, perhaps in math and science, right? If they've come from a different school system that's more advanced, they might have, they might be further along. And so if you exhaust your way out of the curriculum, you can go and take these college courses. And so I did. I auditioned for an acting class, got a student ID, got access to Blackboard, the system that you get your courses on. And that summer I thought, I wonder if I can sign up for other classes. So I just sort of did. I signed up for an English class and a history class. And
didn't ask, just did it.
Yeah. And so, in Michigan, college starts a few weeks before high school. So I just kind of started going to the classes.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, the worst case is I take a couple classes. And, the first day of high school, I told my guidance counselor, I don't need to take any classes. I've already signed up for them at Grand Valley. I'm already enrolled and I've already completed my first assignments. And he said, I don't know if you can do that. And I said, well, I don't know either, but I thought it might be easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So they figured it out. And by time I graduated, I was going into my junior year of college. So
by the time you graduated from high school?
Technically, yeah. By the time I graduated, when I finished high school, I was going into my junior year of college. So I completed my freshman year of college simultaneously with my junior year of high school, and then my sophomore year of college simultaneously with my senior year. And I wouldn't say that, I was particularly scholastically smart. For me, it was just a time-saving hack and a money-saving hack of, hey, I can knock this out, get this done now, and then I'll be able to start working sooner. And
yeah. Both my kids went to Collin College here in the Dallas area.
Okay.
Well, while they were in high school. So my daughter actually finished high school in 3 years and went to college. My son went to high school for 4 years and then finished college in 3 because of the dual credit thing. So
sure.
I'm a huge fan of the dual credit. It's really awesome. But why did you do that? Was it just because you just thought, hey, I can save money and speed this up? Or
yeah,
were you
exactly.
just trying to get rid of school?
Looking back on it now, I have no idea how I did it. I'm in the process of closing our seed round right now. And so, they always say an entrepreneurial life, when you're in fundraising mode, it's a full-time job on top of your full-time job. But I think back to those years, and I was taking, an 18 credit course load, and I was working full-time, 60 hours a week. So, there's child labor laws in Michigan. You couldn't work over 12 hours. So I circumvented that by having 4 part-time jobs. And, you ask why. I really don't know where it came from, but there was just this sense of urgency that, hey, I need to get this knocked out. And it really, nothing about it felt unique or extraordinary at the time. It just kind of seemed normal. Hey, I'm just getting my stuff done. I'm going through, I'm looking at my course load. This is what I need to graduate. These are the credits I need. And so I would just kind of figure out a schedule.
But your friends weren't doing this, I assume.
No, I wouldn't say my peer class was, they were kind of taking the more traditional route, but to me, I kind of just had it in my mind. My friends are out partying right now, that, they're having a good time, but I'm going to have the rest of my life to party. And a lot of them are going to graduate and be $50,000 or $100,000 or maybe $200,000 in debt, and I'm going to be making $200,000.
Right.
And that was kind of my goal. So
interesting.
Yeah,
Were either one of your parents an entrepreneur?
No, they weren't. My father was a youth pastor,
Oh.
and my mom worked on and off in sales. At that time, the Michigan economy had collapsed. I graduated in 2009, so it was a really, really trying time. And I knew that they wanted to help me, with everything that they could, but just they weren't able to financially support me. So they, we offered a lot of love and a lot of support, and always, encouraged me to pursue my dreams and keep going. But my grandfather was a really, really big impact. He was an attorney and always just said, you can do anything you set your mind to. And if you find something that you love to do, you never have to work another day in your life. So I kind of set out on a challenge to figure out what that was.
Interesting. So what did you do when you came out of college?
So I packed up my Nissan Maxima and drove to Dallas, Texas, found a roommate on Twitter on my way down.
Why Dallas?
Literally. At the time, I had considered going to U of M for my MBA. And I was waiting tables at a Logan's Roadhouse in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mm-hmm. All of my friends that were waiting tables with me had their MBA. And so I thought,
wow,
this might not be a great career path. And I just kind of started researching, the best place for up and coming young professionals, where there was great trajectory for, growth. I knew I wanted to do something in business and sales, something like that. And so Dallas was the best place to do that. And we had a couple family friend connections, through Gateway Church, actually, in Southlake, that I knew. And so I sort of was connected there, but really I didn't know anyone. I just kind of said, well, I'm going to figure it out when I get there. I actually had saved $10,000 while in school. I worked full time, didn't take out any student loans. So I graduated debt free. I had 10 grand in the bank. And I thought, well, even if it takes me 6 months to find a job, I'll be able to get an apartment. I figured out, this is how much I can spend on groceries, and this is how long it'll last. So
that is awesome. And is your family still up in Michigan?
My folks moved to Nashville about a year and a half ago, and my brother's in California. So we're kind of all spread out now.
Yeah. Seems like the typical thing anymore. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back after this. Welcome back to the Next Level Show. We're talking to Rachael Sipperley with Rent My Wardrobe, and you can check them out at rentmywardrobe.com, but you can also go to the iOS app store, and download Rent My Wardrobe there. And I understand you can't do that on Android yet. Is that right?
Not yet, but we should be
soon?
coming. Yeah, just before the end of the month, Android will be out as well.
I've always been an Android guy, and I just switched to iPhone.
Oh, did you?
I mean, not 2 weeks ago, and I'm not happy.
Don't
right
love
now.
it.
Don't love
I've
it
heard
yet.
that most people that make the switch.
But I had to do it to be able to talk to my baby girl and wife and son on FaceTime
There you
and to
go.
group text cleanly and all that other nonsense. So anyway, so Rent My Wardrobe. So this is not something that you started doing right away when you came to Dallas.
No, not at all.
So did you have other entrepreneurial things you were doing before you started it? Or?
Well, so I kind of worked my way up the corporate ladder. I started working in sales. I was a major account executive for a Fortune 500 company by the time I was 22. But the side hustles never really stopped. So I was always still, even in this very lucrative position, doing these side things. So I bought and sold houses. I would get roommates to help cover the rent, and then buy another house and rent that one out, and then buy another one. So I did that a couple times. And then in the later years, discovered Airbnb. And so I started using Airbnb to monetize on my rental properties, and found that I could make triple, what I could just with normal tenants.
Really?
Yeah.
What part of town were your rentals in?
Dallas,
Like
DFW.
downtown, or was it just like in the suburbs?
Yeah, I had a house in Valley Ranch and then a couple in Uptown.
Interesting. I would think the ones in Uptown would do better than the ones in the suburbs, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah. Well, back when I had the house in the suburbs, Airbnb, I wasn't using it. I'm sure it had launched, but it wasn't as popular as now. So I don't really have a comparison to see. But yeah, I mean, there's such a great market across Dallas. I always say that, it's easier to sell a house in Dallas than to break a lease. The real estate market has been
it's been real strong.
Right.
Well, I've used Airbnb all over the place. We've rented it in in London, and we were just in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, and all over the U.S. and a couple other places. And it's really easy and fun. We don't always do it. Occasionally we'll do a hotel, but I would say that when we travel, we rarely actually use a hotel anymore unless it's associated with a conference.
Sure.
The conference is at that hotel, so we stay at that hotel. Otherwise, we're always in an Airbnb. So the sharing economy has really become such a big deal. We rent an Uber. In fact, when we were in Chicago the other day, we saw 5 taxis go by us before we actually got our Uber.
Right.
Or actually Lyft. We were using Lyft. And so it's just the way our habits have changed so much because of these smartphones is amazing. So you're clearly capitalizing on that. So tell us about Rent My Wardrobe. Where did that idea come from?
Absolutely. So, as I was participating in the sharing economy and using these platforms and other verticals of my life, at the same time, living and working in Dallas, I was constantly going to events with my friends, and we were swapping dresses. And it occurred to me that there wasn't a peer-to-peer rental system in the fashion space. I started doing, research, and, Rent the Runway had come and really popularized the idea of rentable fashion, and they have kind of paved the way for there to be a supply side where you could go and you could rent clothes. But for me, being someone that had this side hustle mentality and kind of always looking for monetization opportunities, I was seeing some of my girlfriends that would spend thousands of dollars on these clothes that were just collecting dust in their closet. And then with the influx of social media and Instagram, everything being, instantly captured and cemented in time and then posted, it made it more difficult for women to swap with each other in their close networks, right? Because if I was going to let my friend wear a dress and she posted it on Instagram, the next night, if I wanted to wear it, I couldn't because we were posted in a photo together next to each other.
Right.
And so that's when I started doing research, and there just really wasn't anything like it out there in terms of, the collaborative economy in the fashion space.
So was Rent the Runway, was that not peer-to-peer? That was like some company that was renting instead of selling you stuff?
Exactly. So Rent the Runway is a business to consumer model. They had to purchase, gowns from designers and get millions of dollars in upfront capital to go and purchase them, and then they own the clothes. They warehouse them in New York and they ship them out. So it's a business to consumer model. Essentially, what we did is create the Airbnb for fashion. So like you're saying, you never stay in a hotel anymore. The way that Airbnb has fundamentally changed the travel industry, and the way that Uber has fundamentally changed the transit industry, that's what we're doing for fashion.
Interesting. So I'm a guy, and I'm in my mid-50s,
Sure.
so I'm an old guy now. But the idea of me contacting another dude and saying, "Hey, I want to wear your pants, your suit, your tux." I mean, Danny, who records us, he and I were talking before you got here about tuxes, and
Sure.
he used to own one. I currently own one, but I never wear it, and I hope I never have to again. But for somebody to contact me and say, "I want to rent your tux," or for me to do that to someone else, as a guy, seems really odd, but apparently not with women.
No. So I would say two things to that. The first is women are doing this already. They're already swapping dresses with their friends. They're already saying, "Hey, girl, I need a dress to wear this event. Do you have anything?" Sending each other group chats, Facebook messages. This is already happening in everyday life. What we're doing is helping women plug in with their third-party connections. So similar to like a dating algorithm that plugs you in with maybe a friend of a friend. That's what we're doing to allow them to share together. And it's been overwhelmingly, successful. Just we were actually surprised. Millennials, this concept resonates with. There's not a lot of explaining; they get it. And I would ask, how many times did you hear about Uber before you got in one?
I have no idea. I don't remember the answer to that, but I used it fairly early on.
So I can tell you, as a millennial, it probably took me maybe 10 or 15 times of hearing about Uber and then actually physically getting in an Uber and riding with someone. I mean, what they were doing was very, very disruptive. When Airbnb started, so many people said there is no way that some stranger is going to come and sleep in your bed. What world are you in, right? And so what we're doing is disruptive, but the sharing economy has been proven over and over again. And fashion rental has been proven over and over again. And so in that sense, it's not particularly novel, and people are so excited. Women, guys always say that. I don't know if I'd rent, but that's why our market, we're not targeting men at this point.
Well, I looked at your website, and it was clearly targeted women, which is not a surprise to me. I think
a lot of the guys are wanting to jump on board, though. So I think we may be expanding into menswear faster than we initially thought.
Interesting.
But yeah.
That's cool. I like it. Now, I can see it for things like like I've thought about a sharing economy for like sports equipment.
Sure.
If I'm going to go backpacking, I don't own a backpack. Do I have the right boots? If I'm going to go skiing, there's all kinds of things that I can see that the sharing economy, and really your platform,
absolutely,
kind of is unlimited, right?
Very much so, yeah. And we built the product in a way that can be scalable, and that can launch in other verticals. So right now we're focused on the fashion side: shoes, purses, accessories, and clothing. But we definitely have plans to expand, and the possibilities really are limitless. You see it every day that the sharing economy is upon us. When's the last time you purchased an album, for example?
Yeah.
When's the last time you purchased music, right? Like pretty much no one has. Maybe if you're super, into music and want to have records or something like that. But for the most part, people are using Apple Music or they're using Spotify.
Right.
And so that's the same thing that's going to happen with fashion. It's the same thing that's going to happen with cars.
How does somebody know when they look at the app,
Sure.
the Rent My Wardrobe app? How do they know that that's going to fit them?
That's so funny you ask. So women, and a lot of times guys ask me that, women can kind of tell by looking at another girl's body type if something's going to fit them or not. But there's also features that are baked in that help with that. So some of that is we have a fit profile that you can see their size, weight, bust size. Also in the reviews, you can see what other women have worn and how the item has fit them. And then they also get an opportunity, to meet and look and feel before they decide to rent it. And that was really a differentiator for us from Rent the Runway. A lot of women, were using the platform, but they would get the dress the night before the event. And if it didn't fit, they'd have to go to the mall the next day and find something frantically for their event. So the benefit with our platform is you do get to look at it and you can try it on if you want before you decide to rent it.
So if my wife wants to get something through the app, she goes on there, fills out her profile, does all that kind of stuff, finds what she wants, and then that person who owns it, the quote lender of the garment, sends that to her through the mail?
No, it's actually direct in-person exchange.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're meeting up to swap.
Wow.
And they can do that, at a home office. It might be through a concierge service at, apartment building. We're obviously in metropolitan areas, so a lot of times, there's a meeting space there. They could meet at a Starbucks.
Interesting. That surprises me. For some reason, I had assumed that would not be the case, that they would send it and then, because otherwise you're limited by the geography.
It's a hyper local market. Yeah. So similar. What I say is our platform is like if Rent the Runway and Poshmark were to get married and have a baby, and OfferUp was the baby daddy. That would be Rent My Wardrobe.
All right. I have no idea what you just said. Poshmark. What is that?
Poshmark is a buy-sell platform for resale clothing, and OfferUp is like a glorified Craigslist app.
Okay.
So your lease is going to expire in the future, and you're trying to figure out how soon should I start working on that? Is it 6 months or a year or 2 years before my lease expiration? Well, there isn't an exact date. This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and my clients always meet with me about 2 years before their expiration date, and we create a strategy. And then we review that strategy again a year later. And so we're always working toward what's right for them, not what they think might be an arbitrary date by which they need to figure this out. The keys in determining how much time you need are whether or not you're going to move, whether or not you need to expand, will there need to be construction on wherever you're going to go to, and all those things take more time. So do a strategy meeting a couple of years out with your advisor, and that'll make things a lot more clear. For more information, please go to texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com.
Welcome back. We're talking to Rachael Sipperley at Rent My Wardrobe. Check them out online, rentmywardrobe.com, or go to the iOS app. Download the Rent My Wardrobe app and then start sharing. Please. It's a startup. They need the business, right? Well, so we were talking about that it's in-person exchange, which really surprised me. Because I figured this would have application all over the country. Do you see that changing at some point?
So hypothetically, one of the things that's interesting that people often don't think about is the carbon footprint associated with shipping. And so we're really interested in sustainability. 30% of the world's water consumption actually goes to textile manufacturing, which is shocking to a lot of people. But there's definitely a movement to get away from fast fashion. We are giving women permission to buy investment pieces that they can hold on to and then rent out and make residual income. So go buy that Gucci bag, right? You can rent it out a handful of times and make up the price of it. But for us, it's hyper local, direct in-person exchange, because we want people to be able to look and feel and see the product prior to making the decision if they want to, rent it or not. And so shipping definitely may be incorporated down the road. In some ways the scope is limited by having it be, hyper local, but there's also a lot of benefits to that too. So we're focused on the Dallas market right now and then expanding into other markets this year.
Interesting. So these people get together, they exchange, somebody tries it on, whatever, make sure. What happens when they've used it now, the renter has used it, and there's damage?
That's a great question. So we offer apparel assurance on every single renter rental, there's just $5, and if something gets stained or ripped or torn, our platform covers that. So that's one of the benefits of transacting through the platform.
So the person renting the garment pays the $5 extra for that protection.
Correct.
Kind of like you do when you rent a car.
Exactly.
Same thing.
Exactly. And just like when you rent a car, when you pick it up, if you notice any imperfections, you can notate that directly in the app to help protect both parties. And then when you're done with the rental, you would just take it to the dry cleaner, snap a photo of the dry cleaning receipt directly in the app, and the owner of the dress can go and pick it up at her convenience at the dry cleaner of her choice that she selected.
Interesting. What is the what kind of rental are we talking about? So if somebody goes and buys a dress for $500, how much are they going to rent that for?
That's a great question, too. So we are recommending typically 10 to 30% of the retail value for most items. For luxury high-end purses, it will be like 5 to 10%.
Really? I'm surprised it's that low.
Well, so you could rent a bag, for 2 weeks or for a month if you want for a couple $100s, but that bag might be a $4,000 bag.
That's really a great value because
Right.
again, when Danny and I were talking about the tuxes, I bought a tux because I could buy a tux for almost the same price as renting a tux.
Right.
Or, like 70%, 70% of the value of the tux is the rental, something like that. And so it just made no sense to continue renting when I could buy one and save so much money. So I'm surprised that it's not a higher percentage than that.
Well, it depends on the item and it depends on, the brand and the size, but typically 20 to 30% for clothing. So what that might look like is if you have a $500 dress, you could rent it out for maybe $150.
Yeah.
Women are not interested in wearing the same thing twice. They want to have rotating outfits. And so our catchphrase is your closet just got a lot bigger. People want to have different options, right? And so our target is really focused more so on the lender side and empowering women to generate income. And so what we're doing is helping them be able to make residual income on the pieces that they have. They can rent them out over and over again. So to your point, selling it consignment, a lot of times, let's say, if you had a $500 dress and you took it to a consignment shop, you might make $50 on it. Well, for us, you could rent that thing out and then over and over again, you're recouping the entire cost.
Have you seen any interest coming from the resale shops? Like my wife and my daughter will go to one called, oh crud, I just lost the name of it. It's over on Preston Road and Forest here in Dallas. And so they go there and there's high-end items and they can buy them at a discount. My wife's ski jacket she bought there. She thinks she's just a goddess on the slopes now, which she actually is, with or without the coat. But so they go there and they'll buy stuff.
Sure.
But have you seen any interest from those kind of stores?
Absolutely. We've been contacted and are working with several local boutiques to help source additional inventory. It's very important to us to be size inclusive on the app. And so we're looking to partner for other categories and sizes that might be a little bit harder to get from consumers. But really, what we're doing is disruptive. And so we're focused on the peer-to-peer component initially. An analogy that I could give is when Airbnb started, people said, why don't you go work with a vacation property management company and just buy all of those houses and put them on your platform? And they said, no, we need to have homeowners putting homes on the platform because that's what we're doing, which is different. And so I think a lot of times people jump to, oh, great, you can get inventory from stores. But what we're doing is getting inventory from the closets that are already out there to create a platform that is more sustainable.
Well, and the one thing I've also noticed from the Airbnb example is that when it's an individual to individual, peer-to-peer, there's less red tape. When we were in Chicago a couple of weekends ago, we rented from a place that turned out to be a corporate apartments company that had locations around the country. They have a lot of them. So they've tried to automate their whole process. And so before I could check in, I had to go through this long questionnaire. I had to take a picture of my driver's license, hold my driver's license in front of my face and take a picture and send it to them. I mean, it was insane. I had never had all this nonsense required of me before. And I was actually kind of nervous about it because I thought, this seems a little weird. I don't know if I want to do this. So I actually called the company and said, hey, is this legit? And they said, yeah, it is. And sorry, I know it's a lot of work. But so there is danger when you get too institutionalized in this kind of thing that you kind of start losing the whole point of it and the whole joy of it in a way. So I can see why you might be reticent to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we're focused on the peer-to-peer economy, and like I've been saying, giving women the ability to become their own entrepreneur. So I think that there's a lot of business, there's a lot of change happening in retail right now. I always say retail's not dying; it's just changing.
Yeah.
But the shift to the sharing economy and the gig economy is what we're really focused on.
Yeah. Well, I think it's cool. It's a great idea. And so whenever you got this idea and you're starting to think about, hey, is there a business here? What do you do? I mean, do you kind of test it out? How do you test it out?
We did a lot of focus groups and surveys early on. I would do, beta testing parties and have a bunch of girls over and cook them dinner and just go through different iterations. And I would say absolutely, if you have an idea or you're thinking about launching a company, it's very, very important to go through that initial research phase. At that time, there was nothing like it out. I couldn't find anything, in research. After, getting, a few months in the process and months later, you find other ones. And now there's other, firms that are popping up or platforms that are popping up that have components of what we're doing. I haven't really found anyone that's a true competitor that's doing exactly what we're doing one-to-one. But we wanted to really understand, is there a product market fit for this? Is there a need? And overwhelmingly what we found is there absolutely was. And people, definitely wanted to do this on both sides. So the interesting challenge with a two-sided marketplace is you are having to control both the supply and the demand. And so you're constantly both marketing and managing the influx of people who want to use the product and the influx of people who have the product that the other people want to use. And so it's really like operating two businesses simultaneously. And so I knew that there was something here when we found people who said, hey, I'm a socialite, or I am interested in fashion, or I just am a girl and want to have different dresses to wear, and I don't want to wear the same thing twice. I don't want to be an outfit repeater. I don't want to, so there's this big demand. And then I also found girls saying, hey, I have this stuff just sitting in my closet collecting dust. I want to make money on this. I don't want to have to go and peddle friends and family selling them vitamins or skincare products, right? The other options that are often available for side hustles. And so this was, a really unique way that people could do that right away without having to have an upfront capital investment. And so when we found that there was enough people saying, yes, 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 I want this. Yes. This is something that we definitely knew. We knew that we had to build it. And even though I didn't have a background in fashion or technology, I knew that if I didn't start the platform, someone else was going to come along and do it before me.
Yeah. You always want to be the first one, right? So how do you start that? I mean, once you have that sort of proof of concept through these parties, what's the first thing you do?
So I often say that someday I'm going to write a book about this, because I literally jumped off the cliff and built the plane on the way down and just figured it out. And there is no manual for how to start a startup. There's lots of books out there, but there's no one that's, saying step by step, here is what you do. And so it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of just like figuring it out, fail fast. But I partnered with developers, started, working with a design team, started doing, I didn't even know what UI UX stood for when I started, this process. So building wireframes, figuring out what the product could be, and then going through different iterations of the product. And then, really boots on the ground, figuring out, okay, we're going to have this product in place now. We need to get the supply. So how are we going to source inventory? Where are we going to go to get the dresses?
So we're going to have to take a quick break. Sorry to stop you there. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. We are talking to Rachael Sipperley that started Rent My Wardrobe. Find her online at rentmywardrobe.com. So before the break, we were talking about the technology and sort of what you do first when you're trying to start this company. And clearly you have to create the app, because that's sort of where everything happens. But you're creating an app where you're kind of assuming what people are going to need and do on both ends. So as you're building that, or you're hiring developers, since you said you're not a technologist, so you're having to hire people to create this thing for you. How do you, as you're going through it, tweak it, modify it to make sure that it's going the right direction?
Yeah. Absolutely, great question. So, we went through different iterations of it, and if I could give any advice, it would be like stop, pen and paper, pencil, napkin, sketch out. What you're thinking. Make it as simple as possible. I really had no idea what I was doing the first time around, so we had, so many features into the first version and so many different, and this is, the story of many entrepreneurs who go through this and the first development team working through the different iterations. But you want to build the product in a way that is super simple and super intuitive and very easy for people to pick up and not have to be told, hey, this is how you move through the app. This is how one button goes through the next. It just automatically is intuitive, as you would move through the process. And so that was something really important, and that took a while to figure out how to build that in a way that was scalable.
Yeah, and that's hard because it's not obvious to everybody. So like when I moved from the Android platform to the iPhone app platform, iOS, some things just don't make sense to me. Why did they do it that way? They're assuming a lot about what people know and how to find things or do things. And it's kind of frustrating to me right now still on a few items, like the podcast player in iOS, I think is garbage. Compared to the previous app that I used for managing my podcast, not my podcast, but listening to all podcasts, was so much better on the other platform. And I can't find one that comes close, a third party. So I guess the point is to what you were saying is how do you make it so simple, so obvious, and yet not be so dumbed down that it doesn't actually do what you want it to do? That's a hard, fine line to walk.
Absolutely. And I think the most critical piece of building an app is actually the architecture. So the best way that I could analogize it for you is it's sort of like building a home. And a lot of development shops try to build a house and they don't have a blueprint for what they're building. So I don't know if you've ever built a house before.
I have not. I never want to.
Never gone through that process. Had friends that did.
Oh, yeah.
So, if you're building it and say, hey, here's my master bedroom, here's the bathroom, this is where I want the toilet and the shower, and then, the next week you say, I actually want to put the toilet over there. Yeah. The entire house has already been, piped and plumbed for the toilet to go here. And so it's not as simple as just picking up and moving it because everything underneath it. And so then you start to uncover that layer and then say, oh, well, now we're going to have to change the sewer, and now we're going to have to change this. And so I think that when you're building an app, the biggest thing that I learned is there's very unique and specific functions of the team. And so you have, a designer and you have an architect and you have a developer, but they're not all doing the same thing. The same way that you wouldn't want your interior designer wiring your electric, right? Those are two different components. And so if you don't start with the blueprint and really have a full working model of how is this thing going to work from beginning to end, how is the user going to flow through this experience and be able to complete this, that is critical. That is absolutely important to be able to develop something that you're talking about that you can move through and that is intuitive. And so it took a while. I had, a lot of really well-intentioned people early on that wanted to help me and wanted to support me. But developing a technology platform for a startup is very, very different than enterprise software.
Oh, yeah.
And there's, a lot of software developers that know how to code, but that doesn't mean that they know how to build a app that's scalable, right?
User-friendly, looks good. Yeah.
All of those things.
So how do you find all those people that helped you?
So it took a lot of grit and guts and God, I would say, a lot of hard work. I worked with a couple different teams and just trying to figure it out before I met what is now I call my unicorn CTO. He actually is background in technology and in product, which is quite rare. Typically, those are two different roles, but he, had worked on several different apps before, and through the startup community, was introduced to him, just friend to friend, and he had introduced me to one of my long-term tech advisors, and full circle, left another startup, and somehow I convinced him to come work with us, and now we're on the path.
So he's an employee of the company then?
Yeah,
actually
he's
on
our
the team.
CTO.
Whenever you were creating the app from the beginning, did you hire an outside company to
Yeah,
help
I
you?
had started with outsourcing, which a lot of startups do. And I had some mentors and early advisors tell me you really need to find a technical co-founder. It's very difficult as a startup to get, you might be able to get an MVP out or get kind of an initial product, but to continue to go to the next round of funding and to expand in a way that could be scalable nationwide, you have to have people on your team that are, eat, breathe, sleep the company. If you have a bug and it's 3:00 on a Saturday, your dev shop isn't going to fix it for you, right? You need someone who has a vetted interest. And so that took a while to find that, right? Because I'm not a technical, I didn't, know how to code. Sometimes I was watching videos on how to code in Objective-C at night so that I could figure out how to lead these tech teams. But it's definitely important. And I would say, if you have an idea for an app or a startup, finding a business partner that can come alongside of you that has a vested interest in the company and that also can help on that technology side is critical.
So you saying that if you had to do this over again, that you would go that route instead of having worked with outside dev shop?
I'm very thankful for the experience that I had, because I think sometimes in the startup world, founders that are non-technical have no idea what's going on. And as the founder of a technology platform, I need to at least at a high level understand some of those components. And so while it was extremely painful, I think that, it was molding and shaping that absolutely needed to happen to get me to where I am now. And so I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And I know that the universe kind of orchestrated that so that I could, be positioned now to not only lead my team, but also have, a very unique appreciation for them and for what they're doing and what they're building. I don't think, if I would have met my now CTO, Chris, off the bat, I don't think that I would have any idea as to the scope of what he does and what he's dealing with, on a day-to-day basis. And so I try to not have regrets and say if I could go back and do it over again. What I would say, if I could go back and do it different, I would try to trust my gut more and tune into that intuition. We actually just left breakfast with my friend and mentor, Susie Batiste. She's the founder of Poopery, but she has really, spoken into me about just listening to your intuition and listening to your gut in business as you're building out the team, as you're making decisions from everything from branding to launching to sales. It's so important to just listen to your gut. And I think that it takes a little bit of practice to fine tune that. But I had an epiphany about a year and a half ago that I was not going to talk myself out of my gut anymore. A lot of times I would have this gut feeling about something, and then logically I would reason my way out of it. And when I made a hard and fast decision that I was no longer going to do that, it seemed like everything in my business changed, and stuff just started turning to gold. So it's really important to me to continue on that journey of having the intuition lead.
Yeah. Interesting. So you mentioned that Susie is a mentor. So it's interesting that as a technology company, you have a product entrepreneur as your mentor instead of a technology entrepreneur.
Well, I certainly have technology advisors too.
As well. Okay.
Yeah, she's
you never
one
have
of
too
them.
many, right?
Yeah, I was just telling her this morning, I really need you on helping us because we have so many on the technology product side, and she's so anti, she says I'm not a business person, even though she's brilliantly business minded.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important to have a balance and to make sure that I would say definitely your advisory board, facilitates all components of that, not just from a business standpoint, but the other side of it as well.
Yeah. So are you still doing, we talked about earlier when you were doing your focus group, so you were testing to make sure are you guys still doing that kind of testing today?
Or absolutely. Yeah, the R&D will never stop.
You
continue
just
to
kind
do
of
focus
officially
groups.
launched, right?
Yeah.
So how long has it taken from the time you got the idea and really said, I'm going to commit to this, to the time you actually launched?
Well, we launched an MVP into the App Store last year, and we used that to really get a lot of early traction and kind of as a baseline to fully build out the product that we have now.
So what's next for the company? I mean, obviously you guys are just launching, so scaling is, of course, a big thing. Going into other markets, I guess, is probably a big thing. You talked about possibly men, God forbid, being a part of the market. Where do you see this being in a year?
We plan to be in at least 8 other markets by the end of next year, by the end of 2020.
Wow, that's a lot. So will you have to have employees on the ground in those markets, or is this something that you can all manage all from Dallas?
We're working on determining a model that's scalable nationally with our headquarters here in Dallas. We are going to have local support, but really what we're most excited about right now is our global expansion opportunities. We're actually having a lot of interest in global markets, and so we're cautiously optimistic that our expansion plans will perhaps trump what we do here domestically.
Wow. Globally, that's you're talking big time now.
Yeah, we're getting a ton of interest from India and from European countries, so that it's super exciting to see what the market is there, and how we could potentially help them as well.
Yeah, and now you're dealing with all kinds of other languages,
Yeah.
and I mean that
Super
opens
fun.
up a whole lot of other things. But
Keep
it's
us on our
cool.
toes.
My daughter's in international business, and so she goes to Germany quite a bit, and they do business all over the world. So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to watch. But well, thank you so much for being our guest today, Rachael. I've enjoyed talking with you and learning more about your business. It's exciting. Listeners, please go to rentmywardrobe.com, or even better, go to the iOS app, download the Rent My Wardrobe app, start trading, renting, borrowing, renting, whatever the right terminology is. And for the show, check out thenextlevelshow.com, or go to podcast or YouTube and just type in The Next Level Show, search that, and you'll find us. We'll be back next week with another great guest. Bye.